Hi, everyone. Welcome to Waste 360's Nothing Wasted podcast. On every episode, we invite the most interesting people in waste, recycling, and organics to sit down with us and chat candidly about their thoughts, their work, this unique industry, and so much more. So thanks for listening and enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. This is Liz Bothwell from Waste 360 with Jane Pryor, CMO of AMI. AMI is one of the largest privately owned beverage companies in the world, with leading brands including Vita Coco and Runa. They've also recently launched Ever and Ever, which is a resealable aluminum alternative to single-use plastic bottles. So welcome, Jane, and thank you for being here today.
Hi, Liz. Thanks for having me.
So you were a huge part of the Ever and Ever launch, and it sounds like quite the endeavor. Could you please tell me more about this and what was the catalyst for creating this?
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a roller coaster that actually started about 18 months ago when we, as you mentioned, went from a one-brand company, which was originally Vita Coco, and pivoted to become a multi-brand portfolio of companies, adding Runa at the time. And as we were thinking about this evolution of our business, we really realized that we needed to take a harder look at sustainability. We had always had social impact programs, and they were really primarily focused on the farmers from which we source our coconuts. So we do a lot of work in the communities that we source, but we didn't have a real environmental plan or a real focus. And when we started to think about becoming a multi-brand, multi-beverage portfolio company, we knew it was time to take sustainability in that sense more seriously. So we embarked on a mission to find a partner, and we ended up working with a team called Lonely Grail. And if you don't know them, they are a phenomenal nonprofit advocating for ocean health. They were the ones behind the Stop Sucking Straw campaign that drove a lot of change around the consumption and use of plastic straws. So we partnered up with them to help us think through our macro sustainability strategy. And our overall goal is really to find a way to neutralize the impact of our single-use packaging, recognizing that that is an increasing issue in today's world. So through that partnership, we started to understand how incredibly versatile aluminum was as a beverage package. And the Lonely Grail team were planning to launch a new campaign this year around plastic water bottles in the very same way that they had last year around plastic straws. And the interesting thing about plastic water bottles is they are a massive issue for the environment and for the planet. 500 billion plastic bottles are used annually around the world, and only 91% of them 91% of plastic has never been recycled. So there's obviously a real issue and a crisis around plastic consumption. And single-use plastic water bottles are one of the biggest offenders. And the thing about when it comes to water, there are many alternatives, right? You can grab it from your in your swell bottle, or from a filter, or from the tap, frankly, in many places around the world where it's safe to do so. But there's often a challenge for consumers who are on the go and looking for a water solution. Maybe they forgot their swell bottle, and there's not that many options at a conventional retail to serve those people who are looking for more sustainable alternatives. So in partnership with Lonely Grail, we knew that we were in a unique position to introduce a new product and do it quickly. So it was actually January of this year, as they got ready to launch their campaign, that we decided, you know what, we believe that we can make a difference and we can launch a brand very quickly to align with their campaign and to enable consumers to have this choice to pick a more sustainable solution. We're a big company in the sense that we have national distribution in the U.S., global distribution on Vita Coco, but we're also incredibly small and entrepreneurially focused because we're still run by our founder. So that's what enabled us to pull this off in 4 months and get the brand on the shelves by June of this year. So that's just a little bit of how we got here, but it's been really exciting, and it's been really amazing to see the consumer response to the brand.
Oh, I bet. And wow, from a marketing perspective and a production perspective, to get this launched within 4 months with passion fueling you is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. I think to your point, it was really passion fueled that enabled us to do it so fast. My technical team and sort of supply chain R&D team were so passionate about this idea the day I brought it to them, and they pulled at every stop imaginable to make it happen. You know, we had to find co-packers, we had to develop water, because even though it's water, it's still it's actually quite a complex product, believe it or not. We also wanted it to be very high quality, you know, with a balanced pH of 7.4. So there's a lot that went into the development, finding the right can, and of course on the brand side, you know, developing a brand from scratch. We didn't have a brand idea when we went into this on January 1st. We thought, wow, we really want to do something disruptive in this space, but we had to create the brand idea from scratch as well. So yeah, it was definitely a lot of work, but definitely passion fueled to get this done.
I bet, and I hope you all celebrated when it launched and the success you're having. You deserve it. So how did you find yourself in a position to care about the worldwide plastics issue and the planet overall? I know you said you worked with Lonely Grail, but it sounds like you as a person really cared about this. Has it always been a passion of yours?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it definitely has. I think coming from Europe, I'm a bit more aware of the issue because it's much more widely covered there. You see it in the UK, are putting in significant regulations and banning all different types of plastic. So I think it's a little bit sort of more part of my heritage, I think, than because I didn't because of where I grew up. I like to say to people, my mother was also incredibly waste conscious. Like, we never wasted anything. She was very, frugal on all fronts. She always, we recycled everything growing up. She had compost before that was, cool.
Right. So
it was sort of, I think it's sort of in my nature as well, that there's to be conscious of waste, and we have just become such a society that's driven by consumerism, and we just forget that the things that we consume, when we trash them aside, that they don't necessarily leave the planet, and that's really the case with plastic. It sort of sticks around forever, and I think it's just time for us as humans to really just address that issue and think about the future generations and not leave them with a planet that is ruined from our consumption. What was also really interesting to me when I started to work with Lonely Grail more closely was I suppose I didn't realize that plastic bottles had only been around since 1990. So it's very much a problem that our generation created, and that made me even more fueled to do something about it, because in another 30 years there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish if we don't do something about it, and that's basically something that that my generation has created. So I do feel a responsibility to try and take this issue on and do what I can, although it's only a very small part.
Well, but it helps. Every small part helps. And also, I think you're right that in terms of the generation and realizing that convenience is fantastic, but now we have to help that along for the planet, because I don't think we all realize what convenience can do to the planet. So it's great thinking. So what type of feedback are you getting from your customers and your stakeholders after the launch?
Yeah, the feedback has been amazing. There's still quite a lot of education required. I didn't mention this in the upfront, but what's really special about aluminum is that it's infinitely recyclable. So as long as the consumer uses it and disposes of it correctly, so make sure that it goes in the right recycling bin, it can essentially live forever. And there's 75% of all the aluminum ever made is still in circulation today since 1888. So that's a pretty amazing thing. Like, some of our cans could have aluminum in them that have been around for hundreds of years. So it could have lived many, many other lives. And the last piece is a can can end up back on shelf within 60 days. So that's an entire sort of concept that people don't understand. And that was very much the inspiration for the brand idea, the brand being called Ever and Ever, and sort of, easily telling people the story about how special aluminum is. So there's a big education piece to this where we have to help people understand why this is a better solution to plastic, which, again, like I said, sort of sticks around for an incredibly long time. So that's been important. Water obviously isn't typically in a can, except for sparkling, but still water is not usually in a can. So consumers are used to being able to see the liquid. So again, that's sort of an educational process to tell people, yeah, no, this is just a high quality premium still water in a can. But we're seeing major adoption in what we call the food service channel, and that's primarily corporations, schools, hospitals. And a lot of these companies have mandates to reduce the amount of single-use plastic that is going through their systems. And a very easy place to start is with plastic water bottles. So it's very easy for them now that there are options like us on the market to say, you know what, I can take out this plastic water bottle and bring this in as a solution instead. And it's a full swap. So now every employee of that office goes to the canteen and suddenly sees that their plastic water bottles are gone, and we are there as a replacement. And it's again, and then we have done many kind of demos and samplings at these offices to help people understand why the switch has been made. But it's been very much driven and supported by a lot of these corporations, which are driving the change. So it's really been a phenomenal response, and for a brand that's 3 months old, I'm pretty pleased with how it's done so far. So far, so good.
That's great. And I think your timing is impeccable because, as you said, the single-use plastic, it's tipped into the mass media and everyone's paying attention now. So I think you're on your way for sure. Now, do you think more brands will follow suit in terms of thinking through packaging that will be less of a burden to our planet?
100%, and I hear it from all my, my colleagues and friends who are in this space. Obviously, the beverage industry in general has a responsibility to address this issue, and we are a single-use beverage company, so we're very aware of our sort of role in this, and that's why this is just one of sort of many initiatives that we hope to initiate around solving this problem. Because I think the biggest thing about it is, from my perspective, there's no silver bullet solution. So introducing a canned water is not the answer. It's definitely a great solution and a great alternative, but it's just one piece of the puzzle, if you will. I'm sure in the future we're going to see movement to beverages in other formats that enable you not to have to use single-use plastic. More, dispensers, for example. We could go backwards in the sense, go back to the fountain idea. But there's definitely a lot of evolution and revolution that's going to happen in the beverage category and in packaging. And obviously then there's still a lot of developments when it comes to PET and recycled PET and recyclable PET. And making sure that the packaging that is used and consumed in the market is then properly either reused or a new use for it is found on the other side. So it's going to take the industry and consumers changing their behavior to really move this forward. But again, the industry has a lot of responsibility, and we have a lot of responsibility as a brand to help put programs in place and help consumers understand how they can make a difference and how they can make better choices. But there's definitely a lot of work to be done. This is not a simple problem to solve.
Sure. And I like the way you're thinking, because I know a lot of us in the waste and recycling industry, we sort of get stuck with what's passed down the line, right? So it's really comforting to hear that the producers of it, the manufacturers, are thinking through the life cycle, which is helpful because a lot of things have been mislabeled. And a lot of consumers are confused if the green hours are on there that it is indeed recyclable, and then we get it, and then it isn't recyclable. So then what do you do with that? Where does that end up? So it's a great conversation to have, and like you said, it's not over, and it's an ongoing conversation through the entire life cycle of every product. So it's great that everyone's thinking it through now.
We actually, as a business, like I mentioned, as we started to make sustainability a bigger priority, we are quite focused on end life as the piece that we want to, find solutions for, right? We feel that that's very tangible. It's obviously a major issue that needs to be addressed, and it's something that we feel like we can make a contribution on, more so than maybe, some of the upstream stuff. So that's where our focus is at the moment, is finding solutions to the end life, whether that is, again, second lives for different types of packaging, better input with, recycled PET, or again, switching to aluminum where it makes sense and where possible because of the infinite recyclability of it. And like you mentioned, just making sure consumers have a better idea of how to correctly dispose of things. So, a lot of work to be done.
Definitely. So what else do you think consumers can do to limit their environmental impact on the planet?
I mean, one of my personal pet peeves, and I think this also stems from my European heritage, is the plastic bags. I think that is one of the easiest ways for a consumer to change their behavior. And I know in Ireland, for example, which is where I'm from, when there was the plastic bag ban was introduced, there was outrage. How am I going to get my grocery shopping done if I can't get a plastic bag? And once the change was in place and the tariffs were imposed on plastic bags, the change was, immediate, and the impact was immediate. And it just enabled, it just forced consumers to change their pattern, right? Now you have to bring your reusable bags to the grocery store. And things like that are so, so simple for you as a consumer to make an impact and to change their behavior. Because you see, like I said, in the countries in Europe where they have implemented plastic bag bans, the results in reduction in plastic have been phenomenal. So I always make sure I have my reusable, and I think that's one of the absolute easiest places to make a difference.
Definitely. And that was just done in my town, and you already see the difference. You see everyone going in with their reusable bags, and it's great. Otherwise, there's a little bit of a penalty, and it's helping.
Yeah, and it's not that big a deal, It's really not. It's a little bit less convenient for the first couple of weeks until you get used to it, and then it just becomes a matter of course. So, yeah.
Exactly. So one of the special things about this industry is that we feel like everyone in it has a desire to give back, and it seems like your company is too. And I saw a little bit about the Vita Coco project. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned it just at the beginning, but obviously, we started the business 15 years ago, and all of our coconuts are sourced from all over the world. So we source from 8 countries, from Brazil to Indonesia to the Philippines. And we really rely on these communities for the source of our coconuts and for us to be able to bring natural coconut water to the U.S. and to consumers and to really grow our business. So from the get-go, when we went into these communities, we felt a responsibility to make sure that we invested responsibly in them. We're obviously bringing economic growth there by, sourcing the coconuts from these places. Historically, in many of the countries that we've gone to, the coconut water was a byproduct, so it was literally flowing down through rivers and the factories that were producing other coconut products. So the fact that we came along and packaged the coconut water brought another stream of income to these producers. And most of, if not all of the producers that we work with are actually family owned. So they're small family businesses that have been producing coconuts for 50, 60 years. So that's a really, really nice part about the story. And then we're also reliant on thousands of small family farms. So coconuts, unlike many other, fruits like oranges or whatnot, are typically grown in the wild and grown with from smallholder farms. So we really have to work with a lot of farmers in order to supply our coconuts. So we embarked on an initiative to help give back to those communities through a combination of programs. So we have one program that's very farmer-centric, and it's about educating the farmers on how they can improve the yield from their land. And that's a combination of giving them better seedlings so they can grow better coconut trees and get more output from their trees. But it's also giving them access to different tools such as intercropping, so they can intercrop other products such as sugarcane or cacao and sell those to other manufacturers, not to us, obviously, because we don't produce those products, for an additional stream of income. So really enabling the farmers to get much more from their land and to be more productive has been a big focus for us. And then on the second side of it, we have been building schools, because obviously education is such a core foundation to any community. And some of these kids in these communities were going to school and learning under tarps, and that was basically their classroom. So we partnered up with a team in the Philippines called the Hope Foundation, and they've actually facilitated our entire program, but they have been building schools in the Philippines for a couple of years, and they've helped us to build, I think, close to 20 schools now. And that's been incredibly rewarding, because the kids on the side of the world grumble when they have to go to school, and these kids were so excited to go into these classrooms and to have this access to really, really simple things like a structured building and a clean bathroom. So it's amazing to see. So the response has been phenomenal. But that's just some of the programs that we do there. So it's been kind of what we've been focused on from an impact perspective on the Vita Coco brand for the last couple of years.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. And it's so nice to see such a concrete benefit of what you're doing with the schools and the children. And I love it. That's great. So are you doing anything else with Lonely Grail?
Yeah, so it's our partnership with Lonely Grail is ongoing. We'll start planning for another initiative next year. And like I said, they are still our partner in mapping out our macro sustainability strategy. So on our Tetra Paks, for example, how can we come up with better end-life solutions for that? So we're still in partnership with them to continue to develop our broader sustainability programming. So hopefully we'll have more concrete stuff to talk about in the next 12 to 18 months, but some good initiatives in the works.
Oh, that's great. So what else should we or what else are you paying attention to around sustainability and social good?
I mean, you can't really help but pay attention to the march in New York last week and this climate conversation. I mean, what an incredible figure this Greta Thunberg is. Her speech at the UN this week was mind-blowing, and I certainly know it pulled on my heartstrings, and I have a 2.5-year-old, so I'm thinking, great, he's going to be coming to me in 10, 15 years' time saying, like, what did you do about this? And how did you let this happen? So I think she has just put a spotlight around this issue that, much like the plastic crisis, which is, I guess, ultimately, connected to the broader issue with the planet, is she's just done such an amazing job to get the world to wake up to this discussion. So it's certainly, like I said, having me asking questions about my behavior and how I can make an impact. So that's definitely the most topical for me right now.
Oh, definitely. I think that's on a lot of people's minds now, especially after seeing this lovely, articulate young girl who is calling everyone out. So we're definitely paying attention to it.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, her speech last week was really, really jarring, but very impactful, I think.
Definitely. And then what advice would you give to professionals who want to do more and do better and affect change, whether it's someone maybe in a company who doesn't have a C-level title? Do you have any advice for someone like that?
Yeah, I think you got to start somewhere. That's how I think about it. I know we started the Vita Coco project, which is our social impact on the farmer side. It seems like an incredibly sort of lofty challenge, and many of the programs that we do are very long-term in nature, so you don't see results for, could be 5-7 years, and that seems very daunting at the outset when we started it. But, we put a stake in the ground and we started working on it. And eventually, a couple of years later, we really see results. So my advice is to start somewhere. On another note, I had an intern here this past summer, and she, in conjunction with some of the other members of my team, worked on a green initiative for our office because, believe it or not, like we're just not as good as we could be or should be. Like I mentioned, sustainability has kind of come on our radar more recently as a business, and there's many things that we could do better. So she put an entire plan together of how, and she was an intern and she did it as part of a project, but it was, the thinking was so sophisticated that I was blown away when she presented it to me. And now we're going to start to implement many of those initiatives. And that's something that anybody can do. It's easy to take, make sure there's proper recycling, make sure there's proper messaging, take plastic utensils out of kitchens, and just help educate people that how they can make a small difference. So that would be my advice.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. And wow, what an intern. That's fantastic.
Yes. She was exceptional.
That's awesome. So based on the early buzz and success of Ever and Ever, not to mention the social fit of it, it sounds like you are already exploring other planet-friendly alternatives in your brands and your work. I don't know if you can tell us anything about those or if they're still sort of in the inception phase.
Yeah, nothing that I can specifically speak to, but absolutely, yes, it's definitely a big part of our ongoing innovation strategy is, thinking about how we can improve our packaging offerings and make more brands available in more categories to consumers who are looking for better choices. And even in the context of Ever and Ever, we will have more products in that line in the future, hopefully as early as next year. Again, some people don't love to drink still unflavored water or sparkling unflavored water. So bringing some innovation to that brand to keep people excited and interested, keep the conversation going, and to give them some other options. Because I think you said it earlier, at the end of the day, the way we live our lives these days, it's on the go. We're very used to convenience. And as much as, we advocate for always having a reusable water bottle, it's not always possible. Personally, I always forget mine, especially if I'm heading to the airport or something like that. And again, sometimes people want alternatives to water. So we definitely believe that we have a role to play in making sure that we can provide more sustainable solutions long-term for consumers. And I think we, like I said, are in this sort of sweet spot of being a relatively big brand in the context of like startup beverage companies, but tiny in the context of Coke and Pepsi. But also that's what enables us to have speed to market. We went to market with this product in so I said June of this year it was, and on the heels of it, both Coke and Pepsi announced initiatives to move some of their plastic water bottles to aluminum after that. So we hope that we had some, part of that decision. We sort of welcome the competition, and even if long term, that means that we have to share the pie, which of course we will. That's okay, right? Because we were part of the movement that helped to inspire this change, and that was a big part of our ambition with launching this brand.
Amazing, and the speed to market had so much to do with it, and your timing, like I said before, was impeccable. So that's awesome. Now, are you in airports yet? Because I know San Francisco, with their ban on plastic bottles, I would think we all need you there as the option.
We are in New York, in Newark, JFK, and LaGuardia, and then we are in about 10 other locations. I don't have them all off the top of my head, but definitely O'Hare, Reagan in DC, Minneapolis, I think, and then multiple kind of terminals within those airports. So, and this is just the beginning. Obviously, we just launched the brand a couple of months ago. One of the biggest challenges when you launch a beverage brand is building distribution. So it's actually quite impressive that we were able to get that done so fast. And it's because, again, the airports are very aware of this sort of issue and opportunity and making options available to their consumers. So the team, our team here was able to very successfully move that into the system quickly. So yeah, you should see us last month, August, we launched in the New York airports, and then we're starting to trickle into those other airports this month, September. So you should start seeing us very soon. And definitely, we're going to have a big program during the holidays for November and December when there's a lot of travel. So hopefully start to really drive more visibility for the brand and around this issue for consumers traveling during the holidays.
Oh, great. I'll look for that. I'm sure it'll be great. So what keeps you busy outside of work, Jane?
My toddler.
Yes, a 2.5-year-old will do that.
Yeah, so try and spend as much time as possible with him when I'm not at work. Obviously, work keeps me busy and keeps me kind of on my toes Monday to Friday, so I really try and find the time, as much time as possible with him on the weekends, and then try and get in a little yoga for myself every now and again, but that's increasingly difficult these days. But being a mom and doing what I do is pretty challenging, so that keeps me busy.
I bet. And how can listeners find Ever and Ever? I know the airports, I believe Amazon. Can you just tell us where we can find it?
Yeah, on Amazon, on our own direct-to-consumer site, drinkeverandever.com. We are in select Target stores, and that distribution will be expanding over the coming year, particularly in New York and Hawaii at the moment. In New York City, we're starting to appear in kind of a lot of bodegas and natural food stores. And then we have some bigger authorizations coming up in the coming months. Actually, you should start to see us at Sprouts, which is a big natural specialty store in the West and the Southwest, and some other big retailers coming on board over the coming months. So, like I said, a big challenge for beverage brands is building distribution, and we hope that in the next 12 months we will be able to make the product much more accessible and available to consumers where they shop, right? We don't expect that you are going to go to Amazon necessarily to buy your water. It's when you're at your deli or your convenience store or at the airport that you want that solution. So that's what our ambition is to provide it in those points of need.
Oh, that's great. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Jane, and congratulations on such a swift and successful launch. I'm blown away as a marketing person to know that what you did to make that happen in such a short period of time is just awe-inspiring. Thanks for being generous with your time today, and I look forward to our audience hearing about this and this alternative to plastic bottles.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
Thank you, and take care.